Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as France, and of course you good old boys from Africa. You know we love you in Canada, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August 28th, 2018. Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C will be calling in shortly. I believe he's out there fishing, and I don't know if he caught a cold or if he caught a catfish, but I know he was under the water for about 3 minutes. I was kind of worried about him. I started to call 911. He does a lot of fishing right before he gets on to the sports show, so we'll have Big C checking in just a second. I do want to say, what a beautiful day in the sports universe. We have a lot of good things happening all over this beautiful country. But before we even get started, I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And I know Big C is just now pulling up on the line. Big C, from what I heard, you guys have those catfish. I hear they're about 10 to 15 feet long. You ever consider that might be a shark, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it could be a cross with a shark. You ever see how much those things eat? But, we had a little rain down here today, so it hastened me getting out of the water, on a timely fashion and everything. So it's going to take me a little time to get all this fish cleaned up and get the grease hot on the grill, Charlton, and fry it up tonight with the potatoes.
Well, I understand that with the potatoes. I got a friend from Louisiana. He's always saying, Charlton, you won't believe the size of the catfish down here in the South. I guess down in the bayou, them swamps, the catfish, they're a bottom feeder. But a lot of these good old boys, he said, I'm a bottom fisher. He likes to get into the water. They don't use the pole like we do out here in California. Why does fishing on the bottom of the lakes when you're standing in the mud is easier to catch fish? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you feel them rub up against your legs as you're fishing around down there. I mean, and some of them are so big that a pole can't handle it. You can use a hand as bait. They think that a hand is something that's swimming around in the water that they can eat.
Yeah.
But ironically, they end up swallowing your hand, and you grab them by the gills from the inside and pull them out of the water, Charlton. But, I mean, it's a whole new neighborhood. I mean, some of you boys from the West Coast, it's a little spritzy and everything. Probably even throwing gloves when you're holding a fishing pole. Come on down here, get a little muddy, get some real fish and enjoy yourself.
I understand. Well, the only fishing I really do, Big C, is at the grocery store. They're already gutted and clean. I don't have to get all that, the blood stuff and all that good old stuff. But we know it's all fair in love and war. You guys eat a lot of fresh food. I know we have a lot happening in the sports universe. But I just want to take, one more day. The man served for so long. And I want to say again to Senator McCain's family that I appreciate just the service. My father served in the military also, so I know the sacrifice they make. I also have a brother that served. So they don't always come back home. And sometimes people will say, well, they chose to sign up or they chose to do whatever. Well, there are times when men were being drafted. And so, but they serve the country. And I just want to say to all of the veterans out there that are going through some challenges right now. I know McCain was one of the staunch advocates for a lot of the veterans. And here in Northern California, I'll challenge anybody to say this. When you see people who are homeless, sometimes they're just mentally ill. No, a lot of them have PTSD because they fought in the military, and now that they're back home, they don't have where to go, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at homeless, you have to have a different perspective of it. It's not always that people choose to be that way. We have the homeless poor in America. And a lot of those are military veterans, Charlton, when they get their disability benefits or even they have to fight for them because they're not readily available for them all the time. They get denied by the government on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, Charlton, those disability benefits, especially with the price of housing in California, is not enough to afford a dwelling over your head.
No.
And so you're forced into lapse situations. And so many of these people don't choose to be that way, Charlton. But when we look at our veterans, people who served without a conscience, who went out and fought for the rights of the wealthy Americans to stay wealthy, Charlton.
Yeah.
For those privileged Americans to stay privileged. And they went out and battled and slept in holes, Charlton, and they fought the enemy with valor. And we as a country, we turn our back on them. I mean, we seriously turn our back on them because there's much more that this government can do.
Yep.
If we look at all of the politics that's going on in this country, you have people talking about people standing for the flags. These people fought for the flag,
fought for it. Yep.
And yet the government turns their back on them. They never address them in all these political issues. When you look at all the bickering that goes on in Washington, the last thing that anybody will ever talk about is Veteran Affairs, Charlton.
Yeah.
And do you realize that Veteran Affairs is the second largest government entity in the United States? The second largest.
Yeah.
But yet it's given the least amount of attention when you look at these politicians bickering because it's something they don't want to fix or they don't have the ability to fix, Charlton.
Yeah, and I just say for everybody that you really want to stand, you think about it. There are people that saying, if you don't stand, get the blank out of the country. That's not patriotism. If you don't want to stand, you're just exercising.
What do you say to a veteran who's gone to war and lost limbs and no longer can stand?
Yeah.
Is that unpatriotic, Charlton? Because they can't stand now because of the casualties of war? So when these people are making these statements about people, and some of these veterans have come out with dependencies, Charlton, that, because of the injuries that they've had since war, that don't allow them to function in normal society.
Yeah.
So when you sit there and talk about somebody, walk in their boots or ride in their wheelchair before you make these comments about these people, Charlton.
Yeah, and I agree. So a lot of the times, I think about, even in my own life, sometimes, you can hold a grudge on what people say to you. You can hold a grudge on what people do. And sometimes we got to look at what we've done. It's always, I was told as a young athlete, when you point the one finger at somebody, there's normally three pointing back at you. So all of us got something we can clean up. But I learned last night that the late John McCain, Senator McCain, he wanted, among other dignitaries, President Obama and President Bush to speak at his service. Now, these are two people that defeated him when he was trying to become the President of the United States. There are people who won't even say hi to somebody who offended them in a small way. He could have had that small, callous mindset, but he didn't. He chose not to. So I hope we can all learn a little bit about civility and what it means. Late Senator McCain, he'll lay in state at the U.S. Capitol, a rare honor bestowed on only 31 people in 166 years. So I'm just appreciative of the fact that it's a roadmap for people to behave a certain way. How can we make America kinder? You talk about making America great again. It was great. I mean, it's always something that we have to improve. But I've saw so many people in the athletic world taking the time to honor Senator McCain. And for people who say, well, don't miss sports and politics, some of them knuckleheads were honoring the late Senator McCain also because they realized he was not a sycophant. And if you're intelligent, you can do more than one thing at a time. Like you can chew gum, you can also talk about different subjects. So I want to just again thank the late Senator McCain for his service to our country. And I call on all Americans to take the time when you see a veteran. You don't know if they're a veteran or not, but sometimes it's okay to say something kind, how are you? Or give them a bite to eat or a glass of water. Anything is better than just walking past them. Big C, I do want to say, when we look at the world of the NFL, it's been 12 years since a team has won a Super Bowl, with the first team All-Pro wide receiver Marvin Harrison in 2006. Indianapolis Colts prior to that, it was 1999. Not the one that Prince stopped partying until 1999, but the Bruce with the Rams. And then before him, the great Jerry Rice. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we're seeing a landslide of money being paid out to receivers now. And everyone is saying, and regardless of the position, I'm proud that the players are getting paid these days, Charlton,
oh, yeah.
because the owners have made so much money over the decades off the labor of these athletes and always keep saying that they can't pay.
Yeah.
But we see now, a lot of this melee has been being made of the Odell Beckham contract.
Why is that?
It's just the latest of a windfall of huge contracts that receivers have gotten, Charlton. You look at Brandon Cooks, you look at Stephon Diggs, you look at all of these receivers here during the offseason, Landry in Cleveland, that have gotten these huge contracts. And no one is saying anything about them, but Odell Beckham, because he is in the marquee city of New York.
Yeah.
The media is just all over his contract, Charlton, and his contract really is only $1 million more than Stephon Diggs' contract with the Minnesota Vikings, if you break it down as far as guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Diggs was guaranteed $40 million by the Vikings. Odell Beckham was guaranteed $41 million by the Giants.
Wow.
So, but no one is crying about the quarterbacks, Charlton, who are making all the money.
Yep.
We've seen these exorbitant contracts from these quarterbacks who have made money on these contracts, guaranteed money, 137 by Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And has only started several games in the NFL.
Yep.
You know, Kirk Cousins is not even a 500 quarterback, you know, $85 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, you know, $155 million, Charlton. So when we sit here and people are starting to complain, you have to look at the complexion of the receivers that are making the money. They're normally minority receivers, Charlton, who are getting this money. But no one is saying anything about the quarterbacks. They're all Anglo that are getting the money. They say, well, you know, they're controlling the offense. So when a team loses, does anybody say that they need to give some of their money back? Like,
no.
You know, when you look at Roquan Smith,
the
middle linebacker from Chicago Bears that they drafted in the first round, and they took 2 preseason games before they could sign him to a contract, and they were saying, well, if he got suspended, you know, for hits with the helmet or a fine, that they wanted to be able to retrieve some of the guaranteed money. No one is saying, well, if these quarterbacks don't get us to the playoffs, then they should have to pay some of that money back.
Yeah.
And you look at all these quarterbacks, Charlton, how many of them are going to make the playoffs versus these receivers?
Yep.
And another thing on the receivers, everyone says that the quarterback touches the ball every play on offense.
Yeah.
If you were basing it on who should be the highest paid receiver in the game, Charlton, you really might want to look at the tight end position.
Yeah.
Because every play, the tight end is involved. He's either blocking somebody or running a pass route.
Yep.
So when you talk about productivity in an offense, look who's successful and look and see what their tight ends are doing, Charlton. We saw that last year in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Gronkowski was New England's top receiver. Zach Ertz made the game-winning touchdown for Philadelphia.
Yep. And I go back to one of the better tight ends that I saw growing up was Casper, Dave Casper with the Oakland Raiders. I think he was part of that holy roly. That Raiders already had a way to win. They get mad at the Tuck rule and when New England cheated them and robbed them out of a playoff victory. But that holy roller, those guys were not holy because they were Oakland when they were playing San Diego. But Casper was a part of that. He and Kenny the Snake Stapler. You think about Winslow, some of the great tight ends of the NFL. And I think Tony Gonzalez, not too far out of retirement, he was a great guy. There's so many great receivers and tight ends over the years. And I just think that when you think about how these guys will be Hall of Famers, they don't even sniff how much money these guys are making today. But the thing with Beckham, and I always measure every receiver to Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice was not as fast as many of these guys. In fact, when he first came in the league, he couldn't really catch the ball all that well. But he worked himself into being the top receiver in the NFL, a lot like he and Walter Payton, with the way they worked out. Do you compare, if Jerry Rice were playing today, because he was not flashy, even though they called him Flash 80, he was not flashy like Odell Beckham. He was not flashy like Antonio Brown. Would he command the same kind of money, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, with his play attributes, Charlton, yes, he would. You know, when we look at the receivers now in the NFL, we want to gauge them on how they play to the media. Odell Beckham plays to the media. The media has gotten him the contract that he just received because, like I said earlier, you look at Brandon Cook's contract, you look at Stephon Diggs' contract, Charlton.
Yeah.
You look at these receivers that got these contracts over the past month and a half. There was no big fanfare about it. The whole cry has been about what Odell Beckham's going to get. I mean, Antonio Brown's contract's in that same neighborhood, Charlton.
Yeah.
But the whole cry was about Odell Beckham because he played the media since last year. Well, I'll hold out. I won't come. Well, I'm coming to training camp in good faith.
Yeah.
But when you look at what Jerry Rice's productivity was, he didn't have to hold out, Charlton. The 49ers knew what his value was to them as well as the league.
Yeah.
So they had no problem in paying him, Charlton. He had two superstar quarterbacks that he worked tremendously with, Charlton, starting with Joe Montana, moving on to Steve Young, and he even worked with Jeff Garcia. So he had three quarterbacks, Charlton, all pro quarterbacks over the length of his career with the 49ers prior to moving on to the Oakland Raiders and with Rich Gannon and being an all-pro there also, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it was his work ethic that allowed him to move through the eras of the NFL. When you look at the teams that he started with the 49ers, Charlton, in the early 80s, ending his career in the late 90s in Oakland, Charlton, that was because his longevity became because of his work ethic. You didn't hear anything about Jerry Rice. You never heard any off-the-field antics or reports about Jerry Rice. This was a guy who went to work, who played football the way that football gets played. The media now, Charlton, is more interested in the antics that a football player does. You look at Odell Beckham. Everybody, made him the greatest receiver of all time because of a one-handed catch on Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys and Brandon Carr. Then all of a sudden they labeled him a kook because he was there apologizing to a kicking net that had beat him up the week before. and so, then all of a sudden we see him, they want to get on him because he drops a pass in the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers. Next thing you know, it came out that he was down in Miami on the boat. So they had boat gates down in Miami. Next thing you know, last summer, Charlton, he's over in Italy. They spilled the mozzarella cheese on all the boards, and he was there scraping it up with the credit card. Who knows what real mozzarella cheese costs in Italy. So, he's been more of a media player, Charlton, because, his numbers are tremendous. But, his college teammate Landry, who just signed with Cleveland, has the same numbers that he had, financially and statistically, as well as when you look at Antonio Brown and Julio Jones, Charlton.
So I want to ask you then, we know about self-promotion. They say it's a pretty sad dog that won't wag his own tail. Did your neighbor ever give your dog back? I know he took him and bleached his hair blonde and all that stuff. Did he ever give that dog? It's funny. I know there are times when people can do silly things, but as far as the players now that will call attention to themselves, and it's not just football players, but they are marketing corporations now, Big C. It's almost like I hear some of the coaches saying, as the coaches go out to recruit different players from the high school or AAU, they tell people, you got to make noise so people know you're there. Even if you're a great player, if you're quiet, sometimes you're not noticed. You could be a marginal player, but you make a lot of noise. Like you brought up, was a Broadway Joe you brought up the other day. Broadway Joe made a lot of noise, but number-wise, he didn't have it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to bring some type of showmanship now in sports. When you look at the media not voting people into the Hall of Fame, they're not voting them in because these players won't talk to them. They're not showmen. They're not easy stories. But when we look over the years at the guys, Charlton, who've been highlight reels off the field, who's always had a fondness for the camera or the microphone, who's been easy print, that's what the media looks at. They look for that guy who is a somewhat showman. Not always looking for the guy who is out playing everybody. You look at the NBA. Kawhi Leonard was a very quiet player in San Antonio. The media really didn't respect him as much. They were looking for more of the guys who wanted to talk all the time. It's like LeBron. LeBron doesn't care to talk. They just put the mic in his face every time he turns around. He just wants to enjoy the game. We look at the NFL. Who is the loudmouth quarterback in the NFL? Nobody really, Charlton. The greatest quarterback in the game, Tom Brady. The media is very irritated behind him because he's a rub-off of his coach, Bill Belichick.
He sure is.
He's straightforward with a question, with an answer. That's where he is. He's not building words up for you to try to pick apart. He had an interview this past week, Charlton, where they were questioning him about his personal Dr. Guerrero, who was on the team flight, and he was in Charlotte with them at the game down there, Charlton. He got asked the same questions 5 times on a radio interview. And he hung up on them. And people said, well, he's being cocky and arrogant. The reporter was being cocky and arrogant because the first answer didn't suffice. The second answer, which was the same, didn't suffice. The third answer didn't suffice, Charlton. And so he wanted to badger Brady, to make Brady say something that was not even there. And so when you talk about players making a highlight of themselves, he highlighted that he was intelligent. That he didn't have to succumb to, picking apart somebody else, succumbing to whatever dumb question that was asked. And that's one of the things that everybody who listens to a program should understand that don't try to make the athlete a dummy or a puppet.
Yeah.
Let him be the intelligent person in the interview. If he gives you a clairvoyant answer that you can understand, that he's articulated, that should be enough, Charles.
Yeah, I think you're right. In fairness, all Brady had to do is say, look, guys, I'm tired of holding this phone. All these Super Bowl rings I hold on my fingers. The phone's heavy with all these rings on my fingers. Hard to talk to you guys more than a second or two. But, yeah, if you don't want to talk to somebody, just tell them bye. You don't owe them any apology. They say sometimes silence is revealing more than trying to explain yourself. Just hang up the phone. I thought Brady did a good thing on that. When you think about running backs, everybody talks about quarterbacks getting the money. Everyone says that wide receivers are now breaking the bank. When you think about some of the best running backs that we've had in the history of the universe, I think about guys like Marshall Faulk. I think about Terrell Davis. And you think of Davis in 99, Davis in 98, Emmitt Smith in 97. The last time was 1995 that a team won the Super Bowl with the first team all-pro running back. They can always find receivers and quarterbacks and running backs that get the praise. But from every game I've ever seen, Big C, there's usually a good offensive line opening holes or keeping the defense off the quarterback. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's up and down the ledger. When you look at these quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowls, you look at the running backs that have been there as well as the wide receivers. You know, we look at these all-pro running backs up and down. People get these personal accolades all the time. But it's the guy that's willing to do the yeoman work, the team running back. And like you said, Marshall Faulk is the last all-pro running back in 1999 to be on the Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
That's a long time, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's a long time when the greatest show on turf had that. Terrell Davis did it back-to-back with the Broncos.
Yeah.
You know, before his knee injury shortened his career.
Yeah.
So when you think about these backs, and it's nothing against these backs getting paid, but I think that's a lot to do with them devaluing the running backs in the draft when we look at your friend Mel Kiper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When you can always get him in the later rounds.
Yeah.
Because they're always saying, well, but I don't even know if they know that statistic, Charlton, that these all-pro running backs don't get there. I mean, we look at some of the money that's being paid out now to the running backs. You know, you got your boy Le'Veon Bell, you know, 2 years of franchise tag in Pittsburgh. We've seen Todd Gurley just get $40 million guaranteed.
I'll take it.
All running backs should get paid, Charlton, and he's a tremendous player. But, you know, the money's just not there for the running backs. But it's also shown, Charlton, when you have a running-dominated team, and this guy is making the Pro Bowl, that's where he's going to be playing, in the Pro Bowl, not in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think that stat makes a lot of difference, and they do tend to be drafted low. But even with all of that, it's still the linemen who are the least. Think about this: the linemen are the least paid players on a football team. Without a good line, your quarterback looks crappy. I mean, people always say, well, we got this great quarterback. We got to spend a lot of money on the line so the quarterback can look good. Well, if he's good, why does he need a line? So if it comes to needing a good line to keep the quarterback on his feet as opposed to on his backside, at what point and you can't pay everybody top dollar, maybe you can, but at what point will we get some offensive linemen that are paid that $100 million, which is like that new bench ceiling, is that new sea change, the $100 million, anybody can make $99 or $50 million. When will we get a lineman, more than one, that can pull that kind of money? Because without them, Big C, there are no good running backs. There are no good quarterbacks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, over the decades, Charlton, people have always devalued linemen. When linemen hold out, people are saying, well, you know, a replacement. We can get somebody to fill that position. Well, we've seen that over the years, Charlton. When an all-pro lineman is not in the lineup, these offenses have struggled. These quarterbacks have struggled, you know, but, you know, they put all the emphasis, well, you got to have this quarterback. He's got to be the first-round guy.
Yep.
There were years ago, Charlton, when offensive linemen were the first overall pick in the NFL. And when these guys were the first overall pick, those teams were making it to the Super Bowl. Look at the Rams. When we talked about Marshall Faulk, Charlton, being in the Super Bowl as an all-pro running back, and Isaac Bruce being on that same team as a receiver.
Yep.
Orlando Pace was the first overall pick in the draft, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. He went on to lead his team to the Super Bowl. Think about that. He had an all-pro quarterback, an all-pro receiver,
that's right,
and an all-pro running back behind him, Charlton. So it's something to be said about these offensive linemen being able to get the work done.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. when I think about that, I still remember, because Scott Frost is back in Nebraska now, so they're saying Nebraska, 20 some odd years ago under Tom Osborne, Nebraska was Alabama. They were the team that could get everybody. And I remember the Remington Award, they always prided themselves on working out in the weight room. I remember back in the 90s, maybe it was the 80s, but UCLA, Troy Aikman was quarterback. They went into Nebraska, and I think they lost 42-30. And they had a guy playing quarterback at Nebraska. He wore number 9, and he was from Fresno, California. I know his name was Steve. And he passed for 5 touchdowns. Nowadays, they would say, what a great quarterback. But I remember those broadcasters from Nebraska at that time saying, he has so much
Steve
time
Taylor was the quarterback.
Steve Taylor, I know you knew that name. But they honored the lineman for giving him so much time, and they also had a dominant running game. So those days have changed, where they don't even acknowledge the lineman play right now. For example, let's say USC Sam Darnold last year. Most of those linemen on USC, they're going to get drafted into the NFL, or at least they're going to get a look. But their names don't come up. They didn't have the 23 turnovers. That was Darnold that had those turnovers. But those linemen are the ones that gave him some time to have turnovers, but you don't hear much about them at all. There's no Anthony Munoz from back in the day, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look up and down the list, Charlton, and you see no offensive lineman going in the top 5 of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Forget everybody saying you got to have a running back. You got to have a quarterback. But who's going to keep them off of their back, Charlton?
Yeah.
It's offensive line. But when you start building teams based on what the needs are, Charlton, and that's being able to keep those high-priced players protected. And you need to put a little money into that protection, Charlton. You saw what the New York Giants did.
Yeah.
In the second pick. They went out and got Barkley, the running back from Penn State. But what was the next move they did, Charlton? They went out and got Alvis Guerrero, an offensive lineman, in the second round. Not only that, they signed Nate Solder, an offensive tackle who had been with the Patriots for a decade. So not only did they feel that they needed to shore up their backfield, Charlton, but they needed to shore up the guys that were blocking for the backfield. So they got a starting left tackle, Charlton. They got a starting guard out of the situation. Everybody talks about Barkley being drafted. You can draft Barkley. Yeah. But they made sure that they got 2 guys to protect Barkley. Not only that, Eli Manning, by protecting him, they could give Odell Beckham more money. Yep. And by doing that, hopefully Eli Manning can complete some passes to him instead of the opponent's
instead of his opponent. He might be colorblind. You brought up a great point. Terrell Davis in the Super Bowl, Denver versus the Green Bay Packers down in San Diego. I know the Green Bay Packers are going for a repeat. They just come off a defeat of the New England Patriots. Terrell Davis played basically 3 quarters because he had a migraine headache. He rushed for over 200 yards in 3 quarters. Elway gets the MVP. And as great as Davis was at making people miss, he did a pitch it to him. He ran a great off tackle, could make people miss, had great cutback ability. Once he hit the sideline, he was gone. Who were the offensive linemen? You don't even hear about them. No running backs rushing for 200 yards without a great offensive line. Elway didn't block anybody. He had it kind of been spun around the end zone. And I'll never forget the ownership said, "This one's for John." And Davis is like, "I ran for 200 yards in 3 quarters, and this one's for John." Big C, your thoughts? So again, Big C, I think we lost you just for a second, but we got you back. But again, Davis, the line play, Elway gets MVP, doesn't block anybody. But that's just part of the lack of respect that also linemen have grown accustomed to, not only in contract, but in just the way that they don't get any of the respect that some of the top guys get. Big C, your thoughts? I think we're having a little bit of trouble with Big C's microphone. We'll try to get that cleared up. So I think we got Big C back now. We were having some trouble with the mic. Big C, when you catch those fish, that fish is, you got to kill them before you put them in the boat with you, Big C. Sometimes they'll grab the microphone, but I'm glad everything is good. But again, linemen don't get a lot of respect. That's just the way it is. And until they start having guys that are flashy, like Odell Beckham, or like, any other player that's made a lot of noise, there will always be in that situation. But I want to just look at something too. In the last 20 seasons, only 4 teams have won a Super Bowl with a quarterback eating up more than 10% of the salary cap. You think about guys like Steve Young, guys like Peyton Manning, Eli Manning twice, and guys like Brett Favre, you don't always have to make the most money when you play quarterback, but you got to give up some money to let other guys eat too. Big. So your thoughts?
Well, this is about having a balanced roster, and you mentioned a couple guys, Charlton, that had multiple Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
But when you look at these teams overall and the amount of contract money that they're putting out in these contracts for these quarterbacks, saying that they're franchise players, Charlton, that you have to have them to win.
Yeah.
That hasn't panned out over the years, Charlton. You think about, you said Steve Young, you go back there to Park, Charlton.
Yep.
You know, and only 3 quarterbacks have won Super Bowls that have eaten up more than 28% of the salary cap money.
Yeah.
Now when you look around the NFL, Charlton, you have a couple dozen quarterbacks eating up 10% of the salary cap money.
Yeah.
And only one of these guys, Charlton, has the potential to win a Super Bowl on any given year.
Yeah.
But when you look at Tom Brady, and he doesn't eat up 10% of his salary cap money, I think he eats probably about 6.5% to 7%
Yep.
of the cap money in New England, Charlton. But he's won Super Bowls, and we know that Nick Foles didn't make any money last year at all, being the backup quarterback in Philadelphia. Go back to Russell Wilson's win.
Yep.
When he won the Super Bowl against Denver, Charlton, he wasn't a highly paid quarterback in the NFL at that time. Neither was Joe Flacco when he beat the 49ers, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about these guys saying, well, you have to pay these quarterbacks, do you? Or is that just push from the media saying that you
Yeah.
got to make him the highest paid guy on the team, and without him, you can't win? I mean, anybody of any substance, if you can read just a little bit,
Yeah.
Google it. See how many of these quarterbacks that have taken over 10% of their salary.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them, Charlton.
Yeah.
A lot of them. When you look at the list, you got your cousin there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You got Matt Ryan. You got Jimmy Garoppolo. You got Derek Carr. You got Matt Stafford, Charlton.
Yeah.
And a host of other guys, Charlton, making a lot of money. More than 10% of the salary cap on their respective teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
With no chance of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, we know that a part of that is just that there's an angle where they want certain players to have that money, but we'll take that money too. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer leagues. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. And also, I want to just mention we have the Big C Sports app coming out for the kickoff of the football season. There'll be a lot of fun with that app. It's worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports and some of the other things that we're doing for schools as well. You can follow that on Big C Sports. I do want to touch on the fact that we always talk about offense. We talk about running backs, wide receivers, guys breaking the bank. Khalil Mack still not signed with the Oakland Raiders. Only 3 of the top 13 highest paid defensive players in the NFL have ever won a Super Bowl. Von Miller, the number 1, Fletcher Cox, number 4, and then the Eagles, Jason Pierre-Paul, number 13 with the Giants at that time, now with the Buccaneers. So when we talk about defense winning championships, they're not paid like that. I look at the fact that what's going on with the Raiders, and they don't want to deal with Mack for some reason. And Gruden got off to the wrong foot, I think, because he was saying, well, we had him last year, we didn't win. You also had Carr last year, didn't win. But if that's the head coach's idea of how to address their best player on that team, it's not Carr, okay? When Carr went down, Mack was still doing his thing. It's not Carr. But I think it's a slap at Reggie McKenzie. It's also a slap at Davis because they're the ones who brought in Khalil Mack. And the NFL has shown us that he's the best player on their team. So why such lack of respect for defensive players when we know defense wins? Big C, your thoughts?
We'll talk to the last Super Bowl with Fletcher Cox being the defensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles. You saw how much of an impact he had in that game, applying consistent pressure on Tom Brady as well as help shutting down the run of the New England Patriots.
Yeah. And we're having a lot of problems with your microphone, Big C. We're going to see if we can work on that and just make sure we have that straightened out. But I still want to go back to the thing that's happening with Khalil Mack right now. He's going to miss some regular season games because there's one more preseason game. And even if you come back, you don't have your timing. Of course, he's in shape because they're always going to stay in shape. But you don't have your timing. You don't have that same type of synergy with your defensive player. He's a leader on that team. Not having him is just like Lawrence Taylor not being on the New York Giants. I'm not saying he's LT, but he does mean to the Raiders what LT meant to the Giants. And he's more consistent than LT because he's never had any type of off-the-field problems that would cost his team. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, emotion plays a lot in what defensive players do. And not having Khalil Mack around for the preseason, having management, coaching staff looking at him from a different perspective, saying that he's not that important in the things that you do. Here's a guy who may not even be there for the first couple of weeks of the season, Charlton. If I'm Khalil Mack, what I'm doing is that I'm coming in after the fourth, fifth game of the season. You've been fine like crazy anyway.
Yeah.
And all you want to do is make sure that you're in there long enough to get that fifth year in as far as being on the Players Association, Charlton, on your retirement list.
Yeah.
You're going to become a free agent at the end of the season. They either got to franchise tag you, Charlton, out at $20 million a year, or they got to let you go.
Yeah.
So you're not going to lose if you're Khalil Mack. You might lose at the full year of playing, but all he has to do, Charlton, is come in and get in 7 to 9 games in the regular season. That will suffice as keeping him on his fifth year in the league. But it also lets the Raiders know, you come out and you have somebody running up points on you the first couple games of the season, and you can't keep pace with Derek Carr at quarterback, saying, well, you're being outscored and you're not getting pressure on the opposing quarterback. That really lets the public know that John Gruden is really out of touch with the NFL football game.
Yeah.
He might have sounded decent, not good, but decent as a broadcaster on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
But he didn't bring anything to the spectrum.
No.
That's what you have to understand. John Gruden was about being about John Gruden when he was in that Monday night broadcast booth.
Yeah.
He didn't tell you anything that you didn't already know about that Monday night game that was being played.
No.
And so that's what he's done coming back as a coach. He's over a decade removed from the sideline as a head coach.
Yeah.
Go back and look and see how much pro football has changed in that time that he has been away from the sideline, Charlton. See how the game has evolved. See how the passing game has evolved. See how defenses have evolved.
Yeah.
They are not the same type of games when John Gruden was the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think in his last 2 seasons down there, he had losing records. So I don't know why people think of this miraculous return of John Gruden. He's going to change the face of the NFL by being on the sideline.
Yeah, and I just think no matter who you believe in, no matter who you are, if you look anywhere around the league, it would almost be, and again, I go back to the days when the 49ers had some dominant teams in the Bay Area, when the Raiders had dominant teams in the Bay Area, but even Lawrence Taylor over on the East Coast. You wanted him in there. It would be like the Bears telling Mike Singletary, you really don't matter. Okay, you don't really matter, Mike, so we don't need you. Even Ed Too Tall Jones back in the day when he played with that doomsday defense down in Dallas, there's always some contract issues. But I don't really...
Look at Charles Haley, Charlton.
Charles Haley.
Look at Charles Haley when he was down in Dallas.
Yeah.
He held out.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones didn't want to pay him. What did he do? Traded him in San Francisco. What happened in San Francisco?
Super Bowl.
All of a sudden, he secured that defense.
Yep.
They went on to win 2 more Super Bowls, Charlton, with Charles Haley being their top pass rusher. So these are the things you got to look at when you, well, matter of fact, I reversed that. Haley was in San Francisco and they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah.
They sent him to Dallas.
Yep.
And he went on to Dallas and stirred up that defense, and they win a couple more Super Bowls, Charlton.
Yeah.
Impact pass rushers are hard to find.
They are.
We saw that with Reggie White when he left Philadelphia and went to Green Bay.
Yep.
Green Bay finally won the championship when you had this dominant pass rusher in-house, Charlton. The teams that have dominated in the Super Bowls, Von Miller, dominant pass rusher. Michael Strahan, dominant pass rusher, Charlton. You have to have these guys that can put the pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Teams that don't affect the offense, Charlton, don't have pass rushers.
And the thing, too, we know contracts are part of sports because it's a business. But I just don't recall a coach saying, we don't need him anyway. I mean, that just, to me, it doesn't make any sense. And as a West Coast guy, I want to see the Raiders do well because it's easier to get to a playoff game. But it just doesn't feel right. I think a lot of times when you come in and you start throwing people under the bus, and all the players know who the best player is, when you throw him under the bus, you're not doing that so you can make other guys understand that they can be yelled at too. I think you look at the fact that when's the last time Gruden coached a playoff game of a team that he built? He hasn't. He closed the playoff team when the Raiders got him way back in the day, and that tuck rule cost him a game in New England. But the team that went to the playoffs in Tampa, that was Tony Dungy's team. And as we go across the line, I know you like quarterbacks the same way you like hot sauce on those deep-fried catfish you're coming up with, Big Z. And speaking of quarterbacks that you want to put some hot sauce on before you sack them, highest-paid quarterbacks in 2018. Your cousin, Matt Ryan, since you like to call everybody cousins. Some people say brothers, but you say cousin. And then, Kirk Cousins, of course, Minnesota, Garoppolo, San Francisco. What's something that all these guys have in common? I mean, which one has a realistic chance, Big C, of getting to the Super Bowl, since Gruden says that Mac's not that good, maybe his car, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at that highest paid list of quarterbacks in the NFL, and you start with Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matthew Stafford, you got your boy Carr there in Oakland, Joe Flacco still in Baltimore making a lot of money, Andrew Luck. Well, these guys, Charlton, I can't name one of those quarterbacks that I would say has an inside chance of getting into the Super Bowl. You're paying these quarterbacks all this money on hope, Charlton, on being a project. They're not a prospect. They're a project. All of them, Charlton, because none of them, from what I saw last year, Charlton, can have that catastrophic season that can just turn it around and get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But everybody is saying they want it because they're the franchise quarterback. You got to pay them.
Yeah.
I have always thought that you should pay a quarterback based on productivity.
Yeah.
Yes, they deserve money, Charlton, because they're taking all the snaps in the game. But they should also have an incentive-laden contract based on productivity.
Yeah.
Because if they're not performing, it's easy to say that other people are not doing the job, and that's normally what we get when we look at these high-profile quarterbacks. I look at the bashing that a Dak Prescott still gets in Dallas.
Yeah.
Where, just a week ago they were talking about simplifying the offense for him even more. How do you simplify an offense for a quarterback that's won 22 games in the last 2 seasons, Charlton?
Yeah.
I look at Russell Wilson last year accounting for all but 1 touchdown that his team scored. That's an NFL record, Charlton.
Yeah.
And he's not getting the praise of these other guys, saying that they're must-do quarterbacks in the NFL, Charlton. The guys that produce, Tom Brady, as much as you want to malign Tom Brady through the media or any other outlet, the guy has been to all of these Super Bowls continuously. He's a winner. And so all Tom has to do is say, look at my resume. So if I'm going to pay a quarterback $27, $30 million in a season, Charlton, or whatever, how can Tom Brady keep winning and he's only making $14 to $17 million in a quarterback? At the quarterback position. 5 Super Bowl victories, Charlton. And his salary last year was $14 million.
Yeah.
So who in the hell is smoking the stuff that's allowing them to write up the contract for these guys that don't have any of the hardware that Tom Brady has?
Yeah, it's funny. A friend of mine told me that people talk about praying for victory and praying for money and praying for health, and how we say some people say they don't want the cannabis. The Bible was written on cannabis, on cannabis leaf. I had no idea that until I started realizing that. I hope people don't smoke the Bible, Big Z. I hope that's not a justification for Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke when they said that the Bible was made out of cannabis. But I just want to say, will it ever be right? And it's talking about people trying to stay mentally strong and healthy, and whether it's Kevin Love or DeMar DeRozan coming out saying they were having some issues, and other players saying how it's difficult for them at times to express to people that they also have a need, because we see them as gladiators. We see them as men who are supposed to be stronger than circumstances. So will it ever be right for professional athletes or any athlete to acknowledge that they're under some type of psychological medication? We know that doctors can prescribe different things to people to help them calm down, to help them get out of depression. But when an athlete says, I need help too, it's kind of shunned upon, Big C. Will there ever be a day where that's seen as okay? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's hard to say that there'll ever be a day because, it's what we always look at from youth sports, football, basketball, baseball. You got to be strong. You can't show weakness. You got to be tough. And this is instilled in these young kids, Charlton, when they're growing up. And they have emotional vulnerabilities like any other human being.
Yeah.
And so it should be taught from the young age is that you need to talk. Let's go over here and talk. Let me know what's bothering you. Coaches don't do that with young athletes, Charlton, and so it's pushed into them as they continue to grow, Charlton, is that you can't show this emotional vulnerability. People will say it's a sign of weakness, and they will manipulate you, and that's wrong. You're telling them that they no longer can share the feelings of a human being, Charlton. And that's why we see so many of these athletes with these off-the-field issues, Charlton, because they're not allowed to go out and talk about their social and mental adjustments that they need to have. And medication is basically off the chart. Now, you'll give an athlete a pill for anything, Charlton. He got a headache, you give him a pill. You know, he got something that hurts, a pain, a sprung ankle. You'll give him a pill. You give him an injection. But if he needs something for a psychological adjustment, Charlton, to tone him down, that's a faux pas. You don't want to go there. That's something you can't have. But you can give him any type of opiate that you can think that will kill a horse. And they say it's okay. You know, and that's okay. But if he has psychological problems, Charlton, and a lot of these psychological problems come from these opiates. You think about giving a person opiates, you become depressed. Opiates are a very depressing drug, and that's what people don't understand. When we talk about this Oxycontin and fentanyl rage that we have in this country right now, you start taking opiates, you become depressed. You'll break out in tears, you'll cry, you just sit around in a lackadaisical mode. And this happens to these athletes, Charlton, when these trainers and doctors, team doctors, are giving them these drugs. They don't understand the psychological effects. So when you no longer have dislocated wrist or ankle, and you know they've gotten that knee back together, and you were on those drugs that whole time. What was the side effect of the drugs that they were giving you that you need some psychiatric help for, Charlton?
That's something I remember. Kyle Turley, he did a story about how he was having these he was addicted to opioids, and we talked about the Bible being written in cannabis back in the day, and then he got off the opioids and he started dealing with cannabis, and now he no longer has the suicidal thoughts. He feels healthier. He can actually get out of bed and walk around. And so I hope everybody can look at, we already know the conclusions there. Opioids and cannabis were studied at the same time about 100 years ago, but the FDA decided they could make more money on the opioids and the manufacturing than doing something that's dealing with Mother Earth, because everybody could grow it then. Not everybody has a scientific laboratory, Big C. I want to just look at a little bit of what's going on in baseball. You have the Dodgers and the Rangers. They're playing today. We have the A's and the Astros. If you look at what happened in that series to decide the AL West, and it looks like at one time the A's were maybe better than Houston until they played and Houston decided to take that series, and the A's were in Oakland. They could have gone ahead up of one game. They ended up losing that game. Now Houston seems to be healthy. They have their swing back, and it looks like they're going to be hard to knock off in that division, Big C. Your thoughts on those two great organizations?
Well, you know, Houston last night jumped on the A's, Charlton, and knocked them out 11-4. So when they come out of this 3-game series, they're going to be in first place in the AL West. They have a 2.5-game lead. A lot of people have forgot about Houston, Charlton, because Boston and New York were playing red-hot baseball in the East. But Houston had a lot of injuries. You know, they've won their last 6 games since Altuve's been back in the lineup, Charlton, and they picked up 3 other starters that came off the DL. So this is a team, just like last year, Charlton, when they got hot in the latter part of the season, seem to be doing the same thing once again, Charlton. The Oakland A's are a great feel-good story for baseball, but the Houston Astros look like a team that can possibly repeat as World Series champions.
Well, I tell you, when you can hit the ball the way they do, it's hard to tell them that they don't belong. The A's, again, maybe they're coming back down to earth just a little bit. Also have the Diamondbacks playing the San Francisco Giants. The Marlins playing the Red Sox. The Red Sox are on a tear. They're trying to set records. I just wonder if they will run out of steam, because, you know, if they win their division in the AL, in the American League East, they're going to start resting some players as we get closer to the playoffs. That momentum can kill all the things you worked so hard to build up. Do you think they have a chance of letting that happen, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's not so much about winning the regular season record. You know, you can ask the Golden State Warriors out there about that, where you live. You know, you can have a regular season record. The New England Patriots, you can go undefeated. But it's about winning the championship, Charlton. All that other stuff doesn't matter You know, you can be a wild card team as the New York Giants and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's about getting there, Charlton, having an opportunity to win. The regular season is great. It's great for the fans, Charlton, to have all those games during the regular season that you gave them such joy in coming to the ballpark.
Yep.
But the ultimate prize, Charlton, is winning that championship, hosting that trophy after the championship game or series, Charlton. That's what you want to do. It would be great to see Boston win, you know, take the regular season winning title, Charlton, for the most games in a season.
Yeah.
But what they want to do is be able to get into that 7-game series against the Houston Astros, Charlton, to make it to the World Series.
We're looking forward to baseball. And the Yankees are starting to play a little bit better. The Blue Jays are at the Orioles today. White Sox at the Yankees. Love seeing the Yankees play. It's just great when baseball has the Yankees competing for the playoffs. The Nationals and the Phillies are having a hard time holding on. Again, that division is very tough with Atlanta and the Phillies. We'll love to see what happens in the final week of those two teams. The Twins at the Indians, the Brewers and the Reds, and the Tampa Bay Rays at the Braves. So the Mets and Cubs. The Cubs are the feel-good story. I love them because they have that Big C on their uniform. A lot like Big C Sports. I always pull for the Cubs. I just love Wrigley Field, how they're one of the few franchises that love their baseball so much, and they love the history so much, they refuse to tear down Wrigley Field. All they've done is added some bleachers to the outfield, but those fans, whether they've gone to Cubs games for 40 or 50 or even 65, 70 years, they're seeing the same confines. I think that speaks to the tradition in Chicago and how important it is that the Cubs maintain some of that thoughts of yesterday. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the Cubs and you look at the Red Sox, one of the key metrics of baseball is not outbuilding your fan base, Charlton. If you make something desirable, then you always have a packed house. That's what Wrigley Field has done. Those confines have been the same. And it's always been a hard-fought ticket, whether you're winning or losing. And the Cubs have gone out and done some great things under Epstein, the general manager, Charlton. They made moves when needed to make them. The latest move, they brought in Daniel Murphy from the Washington Senate Nationals.
Yeah.
Now, Murphy has led the National League in hitting the last 2 years. That lets you know that Washington is just giving up on their organization, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
They're just scrapping everybody.
Yep.
But Murphy has come over, and since coming over to the Cubs, Charlton, they've won the last 4 games.
Wow.
So he's made an immediate impact in that lineup for them, Charlton. So they all of a sudden got on track. And Madden being manager, Charlton, knowing how to utilize his pitchers and everyday players, the Cubs are right back in the thick of things for that National League title.
Yeah, I think it's great watching that organization. Just love how Chicago's honored their fans by not tearing up their stadium, and their stadiums lasted longer than Yankee Stadium, Big C. The Tigers at the Royals, the Pirates at the Cardinals, love baseball in St. Louis. The Rockies at the Angels, and then the Mariners are taking on the Padres. So we love baseball, football, and then basketball will be here in about a month and a half. So a lot of things happen in the sports universe. I do want to close out on a couple of things, because see, if we look at the U.S. Open today, Djokovic went 10-0 in a match, winning 10 straight after trailing 4-2 in his first round. The U.S. Open, what a great stadium, what great ambiance, what great theater. But to have some regular names show up and win consistently, that's also good for the sport of tennis. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you get the people there that people want to see, and that's what's great about professional athletics, is that the elite always stay on the top. They're having some problems in New York, Charlton, with the heat index. So
yeah.
That's a troubling point when we get to athletes. You know, we've seen the problem at the University of Maryland, them losing the young athletes, you know, during training days, Charlton. And now, you know, some of the problems that the professional athletes are having at the U.S. Open, where they've had to take extra time and precaution, Charlton, which is great, is that the officials say, hey, let's give the players a little extra time to rest. Let's help them cool down. Because you don't want to take any unnecessary health risks. These are some of the greatest athletes in the world and some of the greatest tennis players that the world has ever seen, you know, assimilating there in New York, Charlton, at the Open. And so we're just hoping to have great competition and keep everybody healthy.
Yeah, we definitely need that. Big C, as we close out, you're never going to do our college football special on Friday in the sports universe. As I think a team from the Pac-12 will represent one of the 4 seeds in the college football championship. I think you and I bet some California red wine versus that Southern good old boy homemade moonshine. We'll have to send it underground, Big C, because I don't think they let us put it on airplanes. But I want to get your thoughts. When you say who has the toughest schedule in the country, everybody's talking Alabama. They're talking Clemson. I actually think it's not. I think it's Notre Dame every year, just because they have to get ready for a different style of team almost every 2 years. They don't have that same traditional team that they play year after year, like schools from the SEC or the Pac-12. I think it's Notre Dame where they're playing games against Stanford, or if they're playing games against a Florida State, or if they're playing games against a Georgia or Southern Cal every year. They add so much intrigue, and then they have their Purdue game. They're always adding somebody that's difficult to play against. So I would say Notre Dame year in and year out has the toughest schedule. But your thoughts, Big C? Okay, Big C, we got you back. Notre Dame is I think Notre Dame, because they play so many different time zones and different competition. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at Notre Dame having the toughest schedule in the country. You think about this 2 years ago. This team only had 4 victories, and people were calling for Brian Kelly's head, Charlton, there in South Bend.
Yeah.
Last year, he rebounded with a 10-victory season. But when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, Charlton, this upcoming season, they have the toughest schedule in all of college football.
Yep.
We have the guys that we always see in the playoffs, but Notre Dame, Charlton, you realize in the regular season, only one team on their schedule did not play in a bowl game. That was Syracuse. Only Syracuse this season in Notre Dame's schedule, Charlton, did not play in a bowl game. So when you talk about being up and ready every week, that you don't get a break in your schedule, you have to look at South Bend. Other programs, Charlton, will get all the notoriety from their past performances and all of that.
Yeah.
But right now, when you talk about lining up on Saturday, Charlton, it's Notre Dame. It's the team. If they can run the gauntlet, Charlton, if Notre Dame has 10 or 11 victories on the regular season, Charlton, I don't know how you keep them out of the college football playoffs when they're the only team in the country that has, over 10 teams on their schedule, Charlton, that were in a bowl game last year.
Yeah, I still go back to the days, Era Park season. Of course, they're going to play USC every year, but Notre Dame has played Texas. They played games against Georgia. They played non-conference games, Florida State. They've lined up guys like Clemson. They've lined up the University of Washington, UCLA, Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Name one team in the – and I know the good old boys down south say Alabama. But Alabama's playing teams that they can scout them year after year. I'm not saying that Notre Dame's a better program. I'm just saying they, for some reason, and maybe they should rethink this, they should start scheduling maybe some teams that are not able to go more than 500 on the season. Maybe pick 1 or 2. They got to keep the USC game. Maybe they keep a Stanford on there, but they don't have to keep playing all these top teams. I think it's hurting them in their chances to get back to the national championship. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, to be the best, you have to beat the best. And what happens is they're rating these players for life beyond football. Whether they go into the corporate world, whether they go into professional sports, Charlton, is that they've always competed at the highest level. They're not taking weeks off to find a cupcake somewhere in the schedule. I mean, when you look at Alabama and look at who they open up with in the first month of the season, Charlton, they got a couple of cupcakes on the beginning part of their schedule.
Yeah.
Financial gains for another institution. But I always have respected and liked what Notre Dame has done as a program. They get that national game, Charlton, every week.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to try to knock them off, whether you're looking at it in the Big Ten, the Big East, wherever they're going to play somebody, Charlton, they're going to play them. They're not ducking anybody. They remind me of Mike Tyson when he was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
He's like, who's next?
Yeah, I think that is true. And speaking of Mike Tyson, and speaking of all the great things in the sports universe, again, I thought impressed with the late, great Senator John McCain. Really taught America how to have class. And speaking of class, Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, there's 2 days left until the official kickoff of the college football season, Charlton. But I'm liking what I'm seeing in the baseball pennant races right now, Charlton. We see teams jockeying for position to make it into that playoffs, Charlton. Is going to come down to a couple teams having a one-game play-in. But baseball is hot and exciting right now here at the end of August.
Well, we do love August. We do love barbecue. We love deep fried fish. And we love our California temperature is about 90 degrees and hot. Speaking of hot, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.